because I think it is very, very interesting. We got Taylor, the Packers News, here in the chat says, Clayton, do you think Kenny and Gary will get back to 2023? That's a great question, Taylor. I think that they should take a step forward this year. At least Gary will. I don't know if Kenny will, simply because, guys, Kenny's 30 years old, right? He's going to be 30 this year, and he came in the league when he was 20, if I remember correctly. So as much as people like to get those players in here young, it's still the same amount of time on your body in the league, right? So he's approaching now, if he did come in at 20, he's approaching his 10th year in the league, it looks like, 2016. Yeah, so next year will be his 10th year in the league, I believe. So not this coming season, but the next season. So, it's rare that a defensive tackle makes it 10 years in the league. So I think it's a testament to the player Kenny has been in the past. But let me just put his PFF up here. And what I wanted to say here, Tim, as he was asking this question is, when you say, can he get back to 2023, man, 2023 only graded out as a 70.4. And I know he had a lot more sacks, but they were attacking the quarterback much different. So when you talk about will he get back to 2023, I think he could definitely get back to that level of play. But to me, Tim, it's just not worth the money we're paying. I kind of feel like he is primed for a pay cut next year. Is that cap number is going to blimp up to something like $30 million cap hit for the year 2026. So as you can see here over the course of his career, 74, 87, 90, guys, that was in 2018. Yep. Since 2018, he has declined every year but one, and that was 2023 where he took a slight step up. So in 2018, he was a 90.2. Then he drops to a 79, drops to a 76, drops to a 75, drops all the way to a 66, jumps back up to a 70.4, and then last year drops back down to a 60. So, Tim, I think it's unrealistic to expect Rashan Gary to kind of return back to that 90s form, right, in the 90s PFF grade-wise. And, again, I think some of it with the low grade last year, you got to take into account how they utilized him, how they played him. When they were in their nickel defense, he was that one tech, and he was eating up a lot of double teams and was kind of playing that touch spy we talked about. And I think he played a pretty pivotal role in the run defense, although PFF disagrees here. But what do you think about the question here about we'll start with Kenny, then we'll get to Gary.
Yeah, I think you're right. Just looking at Kenny's numbers there, really 17, 18, 19 was kind of the prime for him. And I think you're kidding yourself if you think anyone's going to, turn 30. He'll be 30 in October this year. October baby like me. I think honestly, yeah, if we could get him back somewhere near those numbers, the grading above 70 would be nice. And I think that might be what Taylor's talking about here.
Right.
You look at that, it's kind of a bright spot the last 3 years was the 2023 grade. But hey, let's face it. I think the Packers are hanging on to the final Ted Thompson draft pick of the organization. And we brought in a giant crop of new defensive linemen that, an elder statesman like Kenny Clark is going to help kind of show them the way. Yep. And, bring them into their own as pros as they get their legs under them. And, I don't want to say transitioning into like a player coach type of role, but clearly I think that's where they see a lot of the value is they're willing to deal with maybe a little bit lower production grades out of him as he, gets a little bit older. But, he is the glue in that defensive locker room, with that D line group. That's the leader. It's goes without saying, really. It's kind of just assumed, I think, at this point. And, Kenny's got a good way of, I've seen him at camp plenty of times, taking guys under his wing, providing clarity with what they're looking to do and things. So, I still agree with you, though. What the contract is versus what we're getting, just looking at the numbers and the production, yeah, it leaves something to be desired. But I think the Packers are paying Kenny Clark for more than strictly just the on-field reps. And then Rashan, I think Rashan's a guy that it all depends on how Coach Half really wants to utilize him this year 2 in this scheme. Like you said, we saw him last year, basically Mr. Double Team, and fighting through doubles, which allowed some other guys to do some work on that line. And that's, kind of like how Hafley likes to approach it, right? with the stunts and the twists, and occupy a blocker, create a lane, a rush lane for somebody else, dial up the occasional nickel blitz or something to add a little flair. But I think Rashan can get back to premier numbers again. Grading well above 70, mid 70s would be a good start. Rashan's a little bit younger, so I don't think there's a reason why we couldn't see 23 or 2022 type numbers, right? Low 80s, high 70s. I think it could happen.
Yeah, and Rashan Gary's kind of the opposite of Kenny Clark. He came in for a full year and just kind of sat back and played behind Zadarius and Preston. I believe in 2020 he did the same thing. As he began to get a little more acclimated into that role as that third edge rusher, and then of course 2021 he steps in as a starter and blows up. He was the 5th highest graded pass rusher at an 89.8. 2022 he drops to an 82.9. Of course, that's the year I believe he was the 15th highest graded pass rusher. That's the year he tears the ACL. And then coming back his first year back from the ACL in 2023, he grades out a 79.0, which is solid for coming off an ACL. And of course, last year he drops to a 73.0, being the 28th highest graded edge defender. Now, when you look at the tape with Gary, I want to say it was week 8 or week 9 that we pulled that stat where he was chipped 6th most in the league, or maybe it was 5th most in the league. I know he was being chipped at that point in the season more than TJ Watt, more than Nick Bosa, and there was some other dominant edge defender that he was being chipped more. And again, people like to pretend like, and I'm not saying that Taylor's doing this, I know you're not, Bub, but people like to pretend like this pass rush was horrible last year. They were 8th in the league in sacks. I heard somebody say they were tied for 7th. I thought it was 8th, but evidently it was 7th in the league for sacks. Guess who led the team in sacks? It was Rashan Gary.
Yep.
Guess who had the most run stops of any edge defender in the entire National Football League? It was Rashan Gary. And again, that's, to me, what I seen last year was more of an emphasis on stopping the run in Hafley's first year. They may go back to that this year. They may pin their ears back and say, you know what, we're going to sacrifice the run a little bit and get after the quarterback a little bit more. I thought they found the perfect balance. And this isn't hindsight me saying this. Last year, I was getting roasted because I was turning on the tape, and then I would hear radio hosts literally who do this for a living, ironically, would talk as Rashan Gary. I watched him get blocked by a tight. That's the one that gets me the most, is him getting blocked by a tight end. And you watch that exact play, and you can see Gary not trying to rush the quarterback. He's protecting a rush lane, and it's like these people have no clue what they're looking at. They have it's not that they're dumb or anyone's any smarter than them. They're too lazy to actually try to understand what's this defense trying to do right here.
Right.
And now it's funny, after the season's over, guess what I've heard here lately over the last couple of weeks? Oh, yeah, they're 7th and 8th, and they were 8th and, rushing or, sacking the quarterback. And I'm going, boy, y'all didn't have this energy last year. That's like another guy, covers the Packers, who will remain nameless, was on this. I mean, he was on his mountaintop last year talking about Josh Myers was one of the best centers in the game. And he didn't understand why fans hated him so much. And he's going to get the bag. He's going to get paid and this and that. He ends up getting less than $2 million on a 1-year deal.
Yep.
Like, I don't know, man. I understand there's some people that cover the team and they don't dive into the X's and O's. They don't really care about understanding everything about the game. They're more reporting on the players, reporting on, like Jason Wilde, one of my favorite podcasts. He's not an X's and O's guy, and he'll tell you that. He's not a let me break down the tape or explain to you guys, what a torch stun is. He's not that dude. He loves to cover the emotion of the game. He covers the stories of the players and their backgrounds, and how he tells the story of the season without getting too caught up or too in depth in the stats and the analytics and everything. I appreciate that about him. That's something I think is very valuable. That comment wasn't geared toward him. It's just other people who pretend like they're breaking down the tape and they ain't got a damn clue what they're talking about. It just drives me insane. So, to the question with Rashan Gary, are they going to pin their ears back, or are they going to run more stunts on the outside? Because Gary's game is power rushing. That's what he does. Line him up in a wide 9 and run through the tackle's face. They didn't have him doing a whole lot of that last year. And they had him working an ET stunt or playing off of a TE stunt and all and really keying in on the run game. So I think, Taylor, what you'll see with Rashan Gary, it all depends on how Hafley calls the defense. And the same thing with Kenny Clark. If they were to switch Kenny Clark and Devontae Wyatt up and say, Devontae Wyatt, we want you to play one tech in our nickel 4-2-5, I guarantee you Kenny's numbers would go up. I have less faith in Kenny improving at this point, though, just because Father Time's catching up, man. He's going to be 30 years old. He's been in the league for it's going to be 10 years next year. He's been in the league going on 9 years. So as for Rashan Gary, even though it's showing, what is this, Tim, 6 years, he's really only been playing a significant amount of snaps, 4 to 5, 4.5 snaps, or 4.5 seasons. So